Good evening, one and all. Good morning, good evening. Oh, what a long weekend, guys. What a long weekend without any of the Johnny Depp trial. What are we going to do at the end of this week? It's Memorial Weekend. They're going to take a long time to decide, or maybe they're not. Maybe they're going to just bring back a really quick verdict. Anyway, regardless, if you're here for the first time, subscribe down below for your latest updates on the Johnny Depp trial. Only today, trailers have landed, showbiz news has landed, our coffee moaning news strand landed earlier today. Stay here. We try to deliver you the breadth and range of an ordinary channel. So there should be something here for everyone. All sorts to discuss today. All sorts. Marlon Brando was mentioned, Chris Pine, Zendaya, idiots. There was even a sort of sense that we were kind of, I don't know, going back in time. I don't know. There was just I don't know. I just had a sense of going back in time. I don't know why. I don't know where that came from. We had blunt instrument injuries. We had hand surgeons. We've had women standing up in the courtroom, holding a baby aloft and saying, "Johnny, I'm yours. We're soulmates. This baby is yours." I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up. And we've got Johnny with his gummy bears and his journal, and it's a never-ending circus of preposterous nonsense that, for me, is precisely the reason why it's worth watching, because it's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's extreme. It's not monkeypox. It's not COVID. It's not cost of living crisis. It's total escape. And these two people have decided, for whatever reasons, well, one of them has decided to plonk this in the public realm, and there it is. It's like an artifact, a cultural artifact. That's what I think. What a day, Sophia! What a day! So obviously, I know it's Jess. If you don't fancy it, I wouldn't watch, because if it's aggravating you, don't watch it, my darling. Mark, you will need a lot of water for this one. That doctor, OMG, OMG. OMG. Also, I think the meme of the day has to be this. You know what I mean? There he goes. That's him turning with disbelief when a movie executive agent type suggests that Amber Heard's sort of profile and stratospheric launch into stardom was equivalent to Jason Momoa's. I don't know, beggars belief. So how are we all, guys? Camille was in there a bit today. We had the other chap, didn't we? We had the guy who feels like he's walked straight out of Goodfellas. What's his name? The guy who kind of is very he's very stop-starty, isn't he? Johnny's agent. Agent? Johnny's lawyer. It's not Mr. Chu, and it's not Camille. It's the other one it's like he's, I don't know, it's like he's Andy Garcia's father. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, it suggests you would be as big as Momoa. Faye Gargaro, Johnny's team have played a very good play. They have 15 hours left, whereas Amber's team only have 4. Now, it's interesting you should say that, Faye Gargaro. I felt that they were very much playing down the clock today. Didn't you feel they were sort of treading water, Johnny's team, around some of this testimony, especially with the last woman who, well, we'll get to her. I mean, we'll move chronologically through things, but the last woman, I felt a little bit sorry for her in the end. She was the sound of her drinking was like this, guys. I mean, it was tough. It was tough. So I'm going to be I'm really shamefaced to say this. I'm afraid I don't have the name of the hand surgeon. I failed to look it up because wasn't really interested. I'd just call him Hand Surgeon Man. And I thought one of the nicest things he said, Hand Surgeon Man, earlier today was why did he decide to do the hand? Why did he focus on the hand? Because he said it's such a beautiful thing. And I thought, this is what's wonderful about this case. You get poetry. You get poetry free of charge, pivoting around the dorsal fin of a hand. Who knew that a hand had a dorsal aspect, like a shark? Did you know that? Her gulping was really annoying me. Sorry, I just got an itchy nostril. Depp's lawyer, Wayne Dennison. He's something about him that's just, he's kind of, Rhian Kemp, the sound of her drinking. We'll get to her. She was quite something. So finger injury, man. Now, I'm going to be really honest with you guys. I don't know whether you agree. Tell me what you think down the side here. Of all the aspects of Johnny's testimony that I think's the least believable, it's the blunt impact wound to his finger. And yet, within what I'm saying, those finger pictures were brutal, Zoe. I showed one of them to Nadia, and she squealed, and there was a sound of elastic snapping, and I didn't really want to ask what that was. But yeah, this is one aspect of Johnny's testimony that it's not felt comfortable to me. I've not sat comfortably with it. It's not really made much sort of sense. What did you think, guys? Suzanne Smith didn't even know, though, what position his hand was in. Well, he did demonstrate it. He was sort of demonstrating with his hand. There was a lot of talk about that, and where his hand was, and where the bottle came, and it was a one of those handle, it has a heavy handle vodka bottle. I must admit, I have remembered those in America, that you get vodka bottles with handles on. Nanny Di, you'll remember drinking from one of those when you were once in LA. A bottle or the bar could have done it. Yeah, exactly, Laura Nichols. But here's the thing. So I've always queried this. I've never really bought it. I've looked at the injury, and part of me kept thinking the same thing that was said today, which was, if it was a bottle and if it impacted and if it shattered, where are the rest of the glass fragments? But here's the thing. A bottle of that size would only impact your hand, and it would shatter once it hit the floor. So I don't think it therefore runs logically that there would have been glass or fragments of glass in his hand. So I think you can knock that to the side. What I've always secretly worried is that Johnny was a bit out of it. Well, bit out of it, very out of it. Didn't really know what the hell was going on. Said it was this, said it was that. Didn't really know where his hand was, because, I mean, let's face it. I mean, he doesn't know his name some of the times, and certainly doesn't know which way he's facing. So why would he remember vividly where his hand was? So if he didn't remember where his hand was, perhaps he got it wrong. But then in the worst dead of night, I was thinking, well, perhaps he literally cut his finger off. Maybe he took a knife and in an act of self-harm, he chopped his finger off. And then the guy said it wasn't a blade inflicted injury. It was to do with, what was it called? What's the word he used? An evulsion. Evulsion. Amber Heard says the finger severed by him smashing the phantom phone on the wall. Exactly. She says it was the phone. She says phony. Johnny says vodka. Which is it? Plus Johnny was writing on the wall with the bloody finger. There is that aspect to it too. So anyway, this chap was brought in. He was obviously brought in, to query the state of the injury, what could have caused the injury, whether in his vast expert sort of experience, he'd ever seen an injury like this. And basically, we all went all the way through the kind of circuit, and it was a crush injury. So Shane Cox, it was caused by something impactful. I mean, the weird suggestion, I don't know if you remember, Johnny Depp said to his nurses, or to the hospital in Australia when he first got the injury, he said that he'd got it caught within not concertina doors, what are they called? The sort of like sliding doors that shut, carousel doors, and they said that it did look like that. And wouldn't it be funny if he had crushed it in a door and then kind of made this stuff up? But here's the thing, and this is the other aspect about the whole finger thing. Say he was drunk, say his hand wasn't in the right place, say he misremembered it, say he knows it happened with something that was thrown at him, but he doesn't quite remember what. That still doesn't make him a domestic abuser necessarily. Ollie Cat 73 can't see a phone cutting his finger off. Yeah, I know what you mean. Faith Goodman, what the medical records saying from Australia? Surely the hospital made reports of the injury. Yeah. Trish McGrath, you can't say that. There's a video out there, Mark, a recording of Johnny's security guard and another with Amber in background on the night of finger injury. Very interesting. Trish, just give us the headline. What does it say? So, in a way, I asked earlier on the poll, did you believe this guy? I believed him. I thought he was sweet enough. He was a passionate hand surgeon, wasn't he? But he said that Johnny Depp's injury was inconsistent with the supposed cause. He said it wasn't a knife, which for me was a relief, because it means Johnny wasn't just idly doing something stupid with his finger and a knife. He got cross. He was asked at one point, do you remember this? Did you reenact the injury, perhaps? And he said, what? By throwing a vodka bottle. Accordion door, that's it. And were there any accordion doors in the Australian house? Very good question. Been no mention of them existing other than this story to Doc. Um, It's only me. Yes, she managed to speak so much faster today at the end of the day. My cousin lost the tip to her finger. It got trapped in a door, Lindsay Smith. I mean, maybe, you know, it was embarrassing. Maybe he did get it trapped in a door and he thought, shitting ill, I can't say that. I'm Johnny Depp. But he did say that, if you know what I mean. We see the images. We see the images of the fingers, and it's the most hideous. I'm not going to show them here. I'm not going to show. Instead, I'm going to just show you. I'm just going to show you Jason Momoa again. Much preferable to severed finger ends and like a hole. It's like a hole in the finger. And then they showed X-rays. Selena Sandhu, the handman, looked a bit uncomfortable after questioning from Camille. Yeah, absolutely. And she just kept pushing it back, didn't she? Amber Heard's lawyer. Oh yeah, what about when under cross-examination? That was all good. But what about Amber Heard's lawyer when he came back to redirect? Rottenborn was back with a vengeance. He's obviously really annoyed that Camille's getting more column inches than him. And he was just thrown under the bus going, oh yeah, look, she was trying to get you to say, this is where Vasquez tried to cut you off. I thought he was utterly odious. And I was listening to a couple of pundits elsewhere saying that jurors and juries do consider how odious or offensive lawyers are and how bullying they are. It does have an impact on the judgments they make. So I'm quite relieved that Rottenborn's showed. I mean, Rottenborn can't help himself, can he? He's a real. There's something really smug about him. He sits there right next to. Have you noticed that Amber doesn't talk to him at all? And have you noticed that Amber's spotted the camera that's on her? She just keeps looking at it now in a strangely sort of unblinking fashion. Sue Southgate, he had testified for Amber's team before on different cases, so could have been biased. He's paid so much by them. To be fair, the financial aspect of every single witness, I think, is kind of an irrelevance, because every expert called for Johnny Depp is charging. Every expert called for Amber Heard is charging. Every person who worked for Johnny is being paid by Johnny. And every other person who doesn't work for Amber Heard isn't necessarily being paid by Amber Heard, but is a very good friend of hers. So, Keely Windle can't bear her legal team. The psychiatrist, we're getting to the psychiatrist, Dr. Spiegel. Well, this was the chap who was this was the hand guy. So did any of you buy into him? I know, did a poll before. None of you really seem to be smitten with the hand guys. Was the hand guy right that it wasn't a vodka bottle? I'm guessing I'm going to know your answer. Rian Kemp, I hope Tom Hardy gets mentioned, and then we might get a Tom Hardy meme. Very good. Now, and it was around about this time. That our hand chap, who, bless him, incredibly sort of excited and happy about analyzing the hand, very believing in the idea that there was an interesting moment where Camille showed a photo. She showed some photos, and she pointed out a bottle of vodka. She pointed out the drops of blood, and that's where old Rottenborn came in and said, there's no way that broken bottle at the back of the shot is the size of the bottle, the half-gallon bottle of vodka that was allegedly thrown. And so it got quite a bit, sort of, I thought, a bit sort of testy, didn't it? And also he said, but Camille did a good job of getting this sentence out of him. I can't confirm it wasn't a vodka bottle. So there you go. Hand guy charges $5,000 for testifying in court. He was there to get paid. You're a hard bunch, aren't you? I'm trying to be fair here. I'm trying to be a little bit more balanced, but no, you're just going in for the kill. He was a bit of a soft target. I don't necessarily know. I think the fact that Camille got him out of his testimony saying, I can't confirm that it was or wasn't a vodka bottle, is a win. It's a win. Hi, Lucy Loxton. It's a win, isn't it? Mayboo, wonder if Amber is starting to regret this. Well, every time they mention the hashtag Amber Turd, I just want to cut to a close-up just to see how she responds. Because, I mean, it's not pleasant, is it? It's not pleasant. He was a bit spongy. He was a bit spongy. So it was around this time before I'm going to pace myself, before Mr. Spiegel came on. Oh, and Mr. Spiegel. I mean, I mean, we've got so much to say about this chap. I mean, he was the centerpiece of the day, but it was around this time that we heard Kate Moss. Kate Moss is going to testify on Wednesday. And I'm on a train coming back from somewhere on Wednesday, so I'm going to have my ears in, and I'm going to have to be Kate Moss. What do you think of that, guys? What do you think, Jules? And I'm not convinced by the hand doctor because he hadn't seen all the photos of Johnny's injury, and had he read all the hospital notes that were in different countries to where he this was a theme of the day. I'll go back to Kate Moss. This was a theme of the day, actually, was that none of the experts that were brought in, once they were challenged on a few bits and bobs around their testimonies, about their knowledge, about how much research they'd done, they seem to not know very much. Oh, look, there's Johnny with Kate. That's why Johnny's team were high-fiving and punching the air when Amber mentioned that he'd allegedly thrown Kate Moss down the stairs. So Kate Moss is going to be testifying virtually over video link on Wednesday, as I believe is a senior executive that I think Johnny's lawyer was mentioning towards the end, a senior executive from Mr. Hermana, I think, from Warner Brothers, is also going to be testifying. And I really, really, really think and hope that Johnny's team need to get the person who surname constantly escapes me, the woman who disputes Amber's sister's statement that Johnny attacked Amber. You know, the Hellman, was it? Or I forget her name, whatever her name is. Shane Cox, I noticed Amber trying to stare at the camera as if she was trying to move it with her mind for her next blockbuster. Mind her. It was like that, wasn't it? It was like this. It wasn't even like, Cronenberg like. It was like this. It was really chilling. And to be honest with you, I thought it was quite a good audition piece. I thought if she's going for the Howell, thank you, Jennifer Howell, she's got to be a star witness. You don't get gifted that kind of, rebuttal testimony. Ali P, perhaps the bottle hit the bar, then broke, and his finger was cut by the rebound glass. You see, in the head of a drunken alcoholic addict, marauding around with pots of paint. I mean, some of the added details to some of these scenarios are quite remarkable. You've got, on the one hand, you've got these idyllic scenes where canvases and paintbrushes and paints are laid out. And then you've got monstrous episodes of severed fingers being dipped into pots of paint and messages scrawled across the walls. I mean, I keep going back to it. I think this jury in Virginia must be sat in the gang. Who the fuck are these nutters in Hollywood? What a bunch of lunatics. It's certainly eye-opening. So Kate Moss. Kate Moss is due to testify on Wednesday. What do you think she's going to say, guys? What do you think she's going to say? Is she going to just say, wow, good ship lollipop. Kate Moss famously, allegedly was told not to speak as she lets herself down. Yes, I know what you mean about that. I do personally think there's a bit of classism and sexism around Kate Moss on that. She herself would say she's not the most highly educated person. That doesn't mean she's not sharp or bright, but I do think she's been a bit caricatured. But I have to say, as I said it to Nads, she's testifying. All I can think of is, was there one time in that advert where she says, get the henna look? What was it? Or get the London look? The London look. That's all I've ever heard her say. It's the London look. That's it. It's the London look. No, she'll definitely be supporting Johnny. I'm just curious to know I'm just curious, how are they going to challenge her? How are they going to try and trip her up? Because don't forget, she's going to be cross-examined. They're going to press her. They're going to push her. They're going to see if she can say that he's a jealous little bastard. Ricky Asser, thanks, Mark, for the catch-up after watching Doc Brown. Right. So there came a point today where I looked away from the screen for 1 second, and then I had to look back at the screen because I saw this guy staring out at me. I was like, what? Hang on a minute. Is Marty McFly in the room? What was going on? There was this strange, surreal moment where Emmett Brown was in the room. Did anyone else get that? Rimmel, the London look. Thanks ever so much, Reem. Yeah. And there he is, Dr. Spiegel. And Dr. Spiegel, he was taking no bullshit. First of all, I thought what was quite interesting was Johnny Depp's team challenged the notion of his expertise. We got into a really odd series of exchanges, didn't you think? I thought it was like we were watching the strangest play written by someone who was annihilated drunk and had probably taken about 25 MDMA pills and watched a whole slew of kind of 80s films like Back to the Future. It's like, what's going on? What is going on? So Johnny Depp's team was saying he's not an expert in intimate partner violence, IPV. They then started to unpack his CV. They then started to say, you haven't written a book with it in the title. Then he said at one point, he said to the guy who I call Andy Garcia's brother, he says, nice plug for my book. Thank you very much. Very odd exchange. Why am I being asked the same question again and again? He said. Then Andy Garcia said, let's call him Andy Garcia's brother, says, IPV doesn't appear on your CV. His facial expression, there were times where Dr. Spiegel would do this. A little bit like Doc Brown there. A little bit like that. I napped when he was on. So that was all very odd. He was clearly there because he didn't like Johnny Depp. Didn't you think it was pretty damn obvious? I mean, obviously he's been called by Amber Heard's team. Surely one of the things about these court cases is if you're brought for one side of the team, like the defense or the prosecution or whatever, you've got to sort of feign some kind of, I'm actually a professional and I'm making a... It was quite apparent in his first description of, yeah, I saw Johnny Depp destroying the kitchen. Destroying the kitchen? Slamming a cupboard? Okay. He apparently he requested to interview Johnny Depp twice. What do you think of that? What did you think of that? Was it that's a question. Should Johnny have allowed Doc Brown to assess him? Would it have helped his cause? Would it have helped Johnny's cause? What was with his mouth movements? Oh, and I have to say, a couple of points that I need to make here, just quickly on Hand Expert. I've not seen Johnny look quite so sort of ruffled and unhappy. Did anyone else notice that? He literally looked up like this. He kind of went like this, literally. He went. And said nothing. He just stared at him, didn't he? When it was suggested that he hadn't been hitten, when it was suggested that he hadn't been hit with a vodka bottle. Wasn't wearing his shades either. Don't know why I use the shades as a fucking tool there, Wonder Woman. What an idiot. My impersonation falls foul. Do you know what I mean? I can't take this guy seriously, can you? Oh, look, there's Kate Moss. There he is. That's him in the sort of cold light day. This is him. He's not having anything. He's not having any of it. Anyway, so all of his, what I'm saying is all of his language, I thought, was incredibly judgmental, prejudgmental, and what have you. And, you know, he took us, I thought, I can see why Amber's team brought him. But there was something about him. I made a note at one point where he says, I'm not an actor. But he definitely wanted to be an actor, didn't he? Didn't you think he overplayed the part? Didn't you think he was a wannabe actor? I did. He talks about, he said, I don't want to impeach Johnny Depp's acting, but he kind of then did. He talked about the charm syndrome with domestic abusers. And here's the point. A lot of what he was saying, take it away from its application to Johnny Depp, I thought actually was a very interesting. I've put clever. The reason I've put clever is I thought it was clever of Amber Heard's team to bring him on because he gave us an incredibly effusive and colourful definition and description. He was off his rocker and very unprofessional, says Jules. He kind of was, but at the same time, he was kind of like, I don't know if anyone else was getting this, he was like one of those maverick lecturers you get at college that at first you think smells and is really strange. And then over time you grow to think, I quite like him actually. He's a bit of a nut job. He was all of those things, but at the same time, his definition and his unpacking of the blackout. He talked about blackout. He said, if you have blackouts, this is an important statement about any addict. If you have blackouts, it's impossible to remember what you've done. It's the nature of a blackout. So again, the inference being that Johnny will not have, will have entered many blackouts. How can Johnny in any capacity state for a fact that he hadn't done A, B, C, or D? Goes back to the point though, where's the footage, where's the proof, where's all that? This guy was arguing that abuse and control can happen, manifests in so many different ways, i.e. damage to property, all this kind of stuff, issues around control, issues around work and everything. So everything, yes, absolutely, did have many blackouts, Ricky Asser. Yeah, I mean, people drink to blackout. I mean, so many people drink to blackout who aren't even alcoholics. Go out every weekend. Most people, a huge number of people who are getting annihilated drunk outside in pubs who are there at the end are going to be in blackout at some point. He does say, this was a bit patronizing. Did anyone hear this bit? I see in this trial he's improved about Johnny. I think Johnny looked over his shades at that point and he said, I commend him. I commend him. And then we got into a discussion on Johnny's cognitive issues. What did you think of that? Johnny's cognitive issues. One thing I don't think's up for debate is Johnny's cognitive issues. They're all over the shop. They're all over the shop. He's done a lot of damage. He's done a lot of damage. He made some pretty self-evident statements. You shouldn't mix Adderall and Seroquel with MDMA. It's not a good idea. He mentioned Marilyn Manson. Doesn't it feel like Amber's team has said to everyone, slip in Marilyn Manson at some point? Every witness has been told. I don't know how he mentioned Marilyn Manson, but he did. Just mention Marilyn Manson. How are we doing on the poll? Let's have a look. What have we got here? Should Johnny have allowed Dr. Brown to assess him? Yes, 19%. No, 81%. Oh. Susan, no evidence on both sides of the case. No winners, case closed. Well, interestingly, Susan, that could well be the verdict that they come out with. They could even come out with a vote. The reason they're going on a lot about potential lost earnings, lost projects, which we'll get to about the last woman today, is because, of course, they could say, Johnny, you've won, but you're not going to get 50 million. You're going to get 6, or you're going to get nothing. Yeah, it's possible. Or they might say you both kind of win, or neither of you win, and neither of you get anything. I mean, it's going to be intriguing what the final decision is. So Mr. Spiegel talked. He talked about all the controlling aspects of a personality: the psychological, sexual, physical abuse to maintain control, the destruction of property, into intimidation. He said interesting stuff about, which is not surprising. He said perpetrators of domestic violence do not seek counselling because they'd have to admit to hitting someone. Whereas the victims do seek couples counselling, obviously trying to kind of echo the fact that they did go to couples counselling. Johnny ended up in a toilet smoking a spliff. You see, here's the thing with Johnny: either he's monstrous and there's just no footage of anything that he's done properly or effectively or sufficiently to kind of absolutely prove it. But he's a very silly boy. I mean, storming out of couples counselling, going into a toilet and smoking spliff. It's not, it's not the greatest thing. But yeah, again, so he was obviously trying to kind of remind us of that moment. We had a very curious moment where we talked about narcissism. I mean, he was on the stand for fucking ages. This guy, he stretched across lunch, didn't he? There was a moment with narcissism. Okay, let's ask the question: who's the bigger narcissist? Because everything he said that he was applying about narcissism to Johnny, didn't everyone think, oh my God, this is everything that's being said of Amber? Who is the narcissist? Johnny, Amber. Who felt that it could have been, and for me, I've put, isn't this the crux of the trial? Because narcissism, his definition of narcissism was to maintain control, a lack of empathy, and you don't care about the other person. That's easily said of an addict or an alcoholic when they're in the active addict mode, because they're only interested in the fix. They're only interested in the substance and their selfish selves. I can say that from experience. But the true judgment of whether you're a narcissist or not is what you're like outside of that, not what you're like outside of that when you're in come down, not when you're outside of that when you're in detox, but when you are clear and clean. Is that your truth? And I think huge numbers of people say that isn't the truth of Johnny. So I think, you know, I think he's bending the rules there in terms of applying the sort of the rules and the definitions of narcissism to a drunk, self-centered addict, which is what Johnny is when he's active and taking drugs. And if Johnny would help his whole situation if he was just a little bit more honest about his struggles and didn't pretend that he's kind of, pretend that he's kind of the oracle on how he can make his use of drugs work for him, because he's definitely an oracle in terms of what drugs do. But there was the inference in Johnny's testimony that he's the one with the inside track on how to make the drugs work for himself. And interestingly, this guy, Spiegel, Dr. Emmett Brown, Doc Brown, is it Doc Brown? Yeah, it is Doc Brown. Was saying that in itself is another aspect of the narcissist. He sort of thinks he knows. He thinks he knows. What was that? Jasmine Philippa. There's only 3 females on the jury, all of which Amber looked at only during testimony. And I think I may have said before, Jasmine, that studies show that principally male juries tend to find in favor of the woman. In civilian cases, it could be completely different here because of the celebrity nature. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it, that they're not. How do you, as a jury, not look? Okay, you don't look at any of the press, you don't look at social media, you don't read anything. You mustn't do any research in between. Over the weekend, they have to lock themselves in a room and pretend Johnny Depp doesn't exist, but they'll have known Johnny Depp existed before they were jurors. Do you know what I mean? That does speak to his delusions. Someone somewhere. They are both narcissists, Andrew Jenner. Well, I would argue differently. I would say that Johnny is in the drug mode, in the active addict mode. I think, in a sense, you could probably describe an addict in addict mode. You could tick every narcissist box going. I thought Johnny looked really, really stressed. I thought his eyes looked. I thought Johnny looked like he'd had a tough weekend. Did anyone else? Then we moved from narcissism to gaslighting. Another great phrase. God, I moved my head so fast then, my eyes nearly passed out. The rest of me didn't, just my eyes. Angela Thompson, when you drop glass bottles, they do break into large bits, in my experience. My husband says it's for factory safety shards, stop the production line. Glass now designed for safer production. They need to get a glass designer or manufacturer in, Angela. You should suggest your husband as an expert witness. Those are the kind of details. Someone somewhere was, a functioning addict, Yasmin Saab. Someone somewhere was saying there's a bed manufacturer or a lumber person online or something that kind of, can prove that the bed wasn't broken. Gaslighting. The suggestion that the victim is conducting the abuse is very common. The suggestion. So what he was trying to say here was that by accusing Amber of domestic abuse, that in itself is a symptom of domestic abuse, which I'm sure is the case. But cannot the mirror image of that be flipped around and applied to Amber? What say you? It is true, Sarah D, about Kate Moss on Wednesday. Isn't it astonishing? Do you know what I mean? So part of his description and definition of gaslighting, sort of through osmosis, control and mind control and manipulation, you make someone doubt their own reality. You make someone doubt their own reality. His suggestion was that gaslighting in this instance is the suggestion that the victim is conducting the abuse. It's a very common tactic to sort of say, if you're the abuser, actually you're abusing me. So as much as he was trying to say that by Johnny bringing this defamation case against Amber, it was an act of domestic abuse, you could argue the same back, could you not? Yeah, it'd be interesting if I think Winona Ryder's busy with the release of Stranger Things season 4, isn't she? We've got prior victimhood. You imitate it. Is Johnny Depp imitating what he saw? What about the armchair psychotherapy? What about the what was it? The oh god, what was it? The garden, the Glasgow, the ethical guidelines around whether you can be an expert, whether you can give diagnosis of someone from the armchair. This kind of, do you remember how lots of people were diagnosing Donald Trump as a narcissist? I think it's this idea that the organizing bodies around psychotherapy and psychiatry in America say that it shouldn't happen. You shouldn't try and diagnose from afar unless you've met the person and assessed them. And then we got into this most remarkable, huge row over what makes an expert witness. I mean, we got to a point where this chap, let's move through our images. Sorry, Kate. Well, I think I've got another image of him. Look, yeah, here. He's kind of like, he was sort of saying, if you question this, um, you can't have expert witnesses. It was just the most ridiculous. It got to the point where this guy was having such a tussle about ethical issues with Andy Garcia's brother, Johnny's lawyer, that the judge had to butt in. Lovely judge. I love the judge. And she had to butt in and say, just answer the questions. Just answer the questions. Because this guy was going off on one. This guy, he got very hostile. He got very hostile. I don't know. He might be miming boobs at that point. He got very, very hostile. I love Kathy Hoffman. I love this. I love the way you're all kind of. We keep going back and back, filling on some of the topics, don't we? Just gonna have some water. Going back to blunt sort of pressure injury. I dropped a mug on my toe, says Kathy Hoffman, walking down the stairs, and it cut the tendon and cut a lot of flesh off, and it bled a lot. Did not hit any other toes. There you go. Oh dear, I'm out of water. What are we going to do? We talked about borderline personality and histrionic personality. Do they contribute to IPV? He said yes. Does that not therefore mean it's applicable to Amber, given that Dr. Curry suggested she had histrionic personality disorder and borderline personality disorder? Cognitive impairment, lots of talk about earpieces, lots of talk about whether Johnny was a good actor or could remember things. If he was told 5 things, would he remember anything? It's a pretty safe bet. I don't think he can. Then there was talk of this guy, this chap here, describing Johnny as an idiot. He was quite loose, this chap, wasn't he? He was quite loose with his language. He was quite loose with his kind of attitude. He was a bit of a rabble rouser, really, this guy, wasn't he? He was sort of sitting back, kicking back at one point. I mean, I was expecting him to get a pipe out and just kind of give it some of that, and was just like, yeah. I mean, he wasn't having any of it, was he? He was sort of, yeah, come on, I'll have you. We got to the point where Johnny's counsel asked, have you ever seen Wonka? That was a weird moment. Was that the moment where he went like that? He sort of went really strange at one point. I genuinely thought he was going to have a breakdown or something. It was really, really strange. It was a really strange moment. And the oddest exchange ever. I think he looked at the judge and he said, do I actually have to answer that? Oh, no, that's right. He was being asked about whether, yeah, he was comparing Johnny's dialogue in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies to his dialogue in real life. And Johnny's lawyer was saying, can you really compare cognitive behavior based on a performance? I mean, between me, you, and the 4 walls, Johnny's performance in Pirates has been on a bit of a downward trajectory. You can't deny it. Sometimes there's greater strength in owning your weaknesses. That's my advice to Johnny. That's my advice to Johnny's team, is sometimes just give a little bit. Just say, yeah, you know what? I can't remember my lines as much as I used to, and that's because I've taken a shitload of drugs. People are going to believe you. Just say it. Just say it. Ugh. Anyways, then there was talk about in his deposition, he called Johnny Depp an idiot. He was saying it wasn't an idiot as a person, it was an idiot in planning. So we had lots of idiot chat. I was thinking of my mum there. She calls me an idiot all the time. I call her an idiot too. It's a term of affection. We love each other. And this was the most astonishing exchange. And then we had Johnny's lawyer said, did Marlon Brando use an earpiece? And then old Doc Brown here illustrated how out of touch he was with everything when he said, isn't he dead? At which point, Johnny Depp's head landed firmly, splat, in his own hands, which will have hurt because he wears rings. Oh, Christina Bett, he kept saying that you can't separate trauma and interpersonal abuse. Yeah, you're absolutely. He was talking about a possible stroke. Yeah, I mean, I've often wondered whether Johnny's had, you can get these small strokes, can't you? I forget what they are, BRTs, TRTs, or something. Nadja's father's had a few. You can have, very small strokes. The amount of drugs that Johnny's has been taking in his time. Then this chap talked about not knowing. Oh yeah, I thought it was quite funny. The thing I was saying a couple of nights ago. Maybe Johnny's counsel had watched what we were saying. Given some of the drugs that Johnny was taking, I was doubtful as to whether he could actually have even sort of, garnered the energy to do some of the things he was being accused of doing, given what he'd taken. So 8 to 10 tablets of MDMA. Could he then cut off his finger? Seroquel puts you to sleep. Talking about how so many of these drugs. Now, this guy made a fair point. He said if you take enough MDMA, it will take you through the turbine, and you'll come out the other side, and you'll be an absolute raging mess. And that is true. Yeah. So, and yeah, so this guy finally, we got to lunch, and after lunch, the cross examination of this guy, or the redirect of this guy, they asked, what does doodling and eating candy have to do with narcissism? Elaine was trying to connect Johnny's eating of gummy bears and his doodling in a notebook to him being a narcissist. And then she asked, do addicts lie? And I don't know why. Look, I wrote that. Look, really? What I felt like saying is, do only addicts lie? Do you know what the weird thing is? So many addicts are such a mess. They lie in an attempt to cover up stuff after the event often, but they're so transparent in their mistakes. And this for me is a crucial part of the Johnny Depp. Did he do what he did, or didn't he? It's very hard when you're a proper addict alcoholic to hide what you've done. It really is. You're a mess. You're a stumbling, bumbling, fumbling mess. He's clearly damaged his brain. If he was this monster that they're purporting him to be in as complete a fashion as they're suggesting, and given the nature of how out of control he would be at so many times, you would for a fact have evidence way beyond what they are kind of the shards that they're pulling together. They really would. They really would. It's just a bit that really annoyed me. Do addicts lie? Do you? Do non-addicts lie? Everyone. There's people lie everywhere. Oh, anyway. So that was Dr. Spiegel. He was entertaining, though, wasn't he? He was entertaining, and I loved the way he kind of he gave me a bit of a kind of. I felt like I went on a bit of a kind of nostalgia trip there, back to the future. Someone somewhere. I don't think he covers it up, but I think his enablers have. That's a good point. That's a fair point. Hope Johnny Depp's team are going to tell the court about Amber Heard's drug and alcohol use. Has the time for that passed? It feels like there are so many other parts. That is what Amber has played on his addiction. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've said it many times. I'm not saying it again and again just because I don't want to sound boring or a broken record. But for a fact, many controlling, abusive individuals can easily suggest that the addict or the alcoholic, with all of their chaotic behavior, is actually the dangerous one, when in matter of fact, the sober one or the in control one is the one exerting control over the addict alcoholic. And precisely because the addict alcoholic has blackouts, you can paint and construct whatever narrative you want around that person. You can run merry circles around them. You can make their paranoia even worse. You can make their jealousies even worse. You can make their self-esteem even lower. And I think it's really important to understand that, because, as much as it will have been genuinely petrifying to have a marauding addict alcoholic who disappoints and falls asleep and disappears and all that kind of stuff, equally, there's the yin and the yang, and there's two sides to the coin and all that kind of stuff. And at this point, I think just for the sake of it, we've just got to have a little bit of Jason Momoa just for a second. What do you think, guys? Oh, Andrea Jenner, 8 to 10 MDMA tablets would put him in hospital, surely. You'd think so, wouldn't you? Mark, you should get up to stand and give your opinion. That's what is happening. They're getting these so-called professionals to give professional opinions without any evidence. Yeah, exactly. Hoax. People with personality disorders lie. AH has been gaslighting JD, Faith Goodman. So straight after him, so the last person of the day was Catherine Arnold, sort of like I couldn't work out what she was, a sort of a movie executive, entertainment expert, forensic something or other. Everyone chucks this word forensic around too much, don't they? And really the long and the short of it was this woman, let's find a photo of her, shall we? This woman here was brought in to essentially sort of shore up and support the counterclaim, that Amber Heard is enacting against Johnny, which is, suing him for 100 million. She's lost income, she's lost jobs, her reputation's been tarnished, etc., etc. And this woman was essentially here to prove that Johnny's Captain Jack Sparrow had run out of steam. I would have asked that question. Now, look, forgetting how much we all love Johnny or don't love Johnny, do we feel, and now answer this honestly, guys, answer this honestly, was Captain Jack Sparrow on his way out anyway? Got to ask the question. The box office was getting less. She made a very valid point that when you make a film like that, it might cost 250 to 300 million, I think, is the production cost. You've got another 300 to 400 million, which is the press and publicity. Chuck on another 100 million. You're looking at 800 million as it is to just get it done and get it out there. So his last one probably did just break even, though probably residuals and everything now has probably made more money. She did seem, I think this woman seemed genuine. I have to say, I think she was entirely uninformed, if I'm honest. What have we got here? Yeah, was Captain Jack Sparrow on his way out anyway? Yes, 48%. Oh, that's interesting. You're more split down the middle. I'm inclined, I think just from we're huge Pirates of the Caribbean. We love the franchise. But like Ali P says, all the films go downhill after the first two or three. I've said it before and I'll say it again. If it could happen in any way, I mean, obviously, Disney have to get 1 million alpacas to make this work. That's what Johnny's demanded. The next Pirates of the Caribbean, this whole drama has guaranteed that if there was another Pirates with Johnny, it would probably be the highest grossing of all of them. So this one was brought in to sort of suggest that he was on the downward trend anyway. His constant bringing in lawsuits against people was doing reputational damage to him. Lots of talk around his inability to be on time. We've heard this quite a few times in the trial. This was nothing new. But which she then moved towards, and this is where it got kind of a bit interesting, and it also got a bit ridiculous, where we were starting to compare what would or could Amber Heard's career have looked like. Now, this is all hypothetical in an industry which is beyond hypothetical anyway, because if one film or one move in any actor's career is a dud, the entire edifice of their career starts to look rocky at the outset. There's Jason Momoa. He's obviously the star of Aquaman. A lot was made of his ascendancy. This woman, again, what's her name? Catherine Arnold, was saying, she suggested that Amber Heard's career could have followed the same trajectory as Jason Momoa, Zendaya, Gal Gadot, who's Wonder Woman, or Ana de Armas, who is soon to be playing Marilyn Monroe. Melanie S. She seemed genuine but crazy to compare Amber Heard to Wonder Woman and Zendaya or Jason Momoa, to be honest with you. And then she started to obviously say that the testimony or the statements of Waldman, Johnny Depp's lawyer, when he said that it was all a hoax and that, Amber Heard and all her pals had kind of constructed this kind of whole story. She was trying to connect the fact that it was Waldman's statements that had a directly corrosive impact on Amber Heard's earning potential and her career. And Johnny's lawyer went for the Trump card and said, but none of these other stars have defecated on a bed. You could have driven a truck through the silence. The tumbleweed just kind of passed through the courtroom. No one thought he was going to chuck shit at her, literally chuck shit at her, but he did. He was willing to go there, didn't he? And as she said, well, we don't necessarily know that she did defecate on a bed. And we have to say we don't necessarily know. Let's just ask the question. Do you believe that, I mean, within all the hyperbole, did Amber poo on a bed? Got to ask the killer questions towards the end. So anyway, so she was suggesting that her career could have been on the same trajectory as Wonder Woman. Chris Pine was mentioned, Zendaya. If I'm honest, I thought for the vast majority of people, for a lot of people, this would have been quite a boring section of the day. I found it really interesting because they were really unpacking what it means to be a leading actor or a title actor, like whether you be Gal Gadot. They talked a lot about the interchangeability of actors in roles like Batman and Superman. He made a huge point of stressing the fact that the defecation story stood as much chance of having a negative impact on Amber's career as Johnny's lawyer's statements could. So his point trying to be, it's not just Johnny and the statements of his lawyer that have dented Amber's reputation. It's also the fact that she's associated with all these stories that aren't particularly positive. Faith Goodman, I'd never heard of Amber Heard before all of this. Amber said the poo was a practical joke gone wrong at the beginning of the trial. Caroline Brown, yes, I did hear that a woman was removed saying that she had Johnny's baby. I mean, God almighty, it'd be terrible if it was the actual baby, wouldn't it? So the comparables were ridiculous. There's a lot of talk about Aquaman being one of the highest grossing films of all time. I mean, it's up there, but just for some clarity, I looked up on Box Office Mojo. It's number 66 in the domestic box office charts of all time in America. I mean, that's still good in the top 100, but it's top 66, number 66, and it's number 24 in the world. So it's high grossing, but it's certainly not one of the highest grossing. And at this point, Catherine was getting a bit tired. And I don't know if you noticed, but Andy Garcia's brother started to ask her about lots of actors and lots of films, including a film that Amber Heard was in called Gully, a recent film, and she hadn't heard of them. I felt for her at this point because she'd obviously felt she'd done as comprehensive a job as she possibly could to be across as much as she could. But it resorted to her saying things like, I'm not a Star Trek fan. I mean, suddenly we're sort of like in the playground, aren't we? She said, I'm not a Star Trekian. I haven't watched that film. It was getting I was a bit embarrassed. Was anyone else? And plus she was doing this. I was just so obsessed with the sound. I thought she was gonna drown or something. So he made the point of, they talked a lot about Jason Momoa's career being far more fundamental than Amber's. Game of Thrones, obviously Aquaman. He was in something else. What was it? Baywatch, Fast and Furious. He talked about how Gal Gadot was in Fast and the Furious. There's a lot of talk about, was Amber Heard's character Mira really going to become a bigger thing? Was she ever going to really have her own film and all that kind of stuff? Not really. I mean, there was a moment where this woman said, but she was shining in the reflected light of Jason Momoa's success. And I'd have thought that's a curious analogy to use when she really didn't want that sense of herself around being around Johnny. Do you know what I mean? The suggestion that really her fame or her success in Aquaman was totally based on Jason Momoa's fame was a curious kind of route to go, when in a sense that's everything she's trying to say is not the case in her career with Johnny. Did you notice that? That's a bit of a kind of contradiction in a sense, don't you think? That 3 years of prep, Laurel Nichols. I was staggered. 3 years of prep. And she didn't know if Robert Pattinson was Batman. Did anyone else pick that bit up? What the fuck? Then there was a bit of then they're teeing up. I think the president of the Warner Brothers DC board. She said, "Have you spoken to the president?" Da, da, da. I think they're bringing in a representative from Warner Brothers to say, you know what, there was no chemistry between Momoa and her. Lots of rumor mills, lots of chat online that there was zero chemistry between Momoa and Heard, and that's why Amber Heard's role has been minimized. So you could argue for the same reasons that Amber Heard's involvement in Aquaman 2 has been reduced due to who she is professionally, what she is, and a lack of chemistry that has nothing to do with Johnny Depp whatsoever. Then there was a moment towards the end where I thought the judge kicked in. Did anyone catch this line towards the end of the day where Andy Garcia's brother, he's not really, it's just the name I've given him, said, are we all right to run till, are we running till 5:30? And she said, every day is a 5:30 day. Every day is a 5:30 day. Don't fuck with that. She's got a sweet face, but I tell you what, she'll destroy you. And so we got to the end of the day with really this expert exhausted. She was exhausted. She'd been pulverized. She'd been pummeled. She didn't know actors. She didn't know certain actors. She didn't know certain films. She didn't even know the last film that Amber Heard was in. She was plucking numbers from everywhere. It was falling apart for her massively. I thought she was flailing. She was drinking water. And she was like that, and the guy had run circles around her, and as I say, I think that they kind of paddled till the end of the day, and now it's all going to get extraordinarily funky for the next couple of days. So there you go. So yeah, interesting day really, because if you think about it, no real star witnesses, but lots of fascinating sort of stuff. And each time I have a doubt about Johnny's thing, so like I had doubts around his finger today. I have doubts always around his cognitive abilities and his addictions and all that, but still nothing new is coming in that convincingly says to me that, you know, perhaps maybe he was not even perhaps or maybe clearly and out of, you know, a mess of an addict, clearly. But I hate to say it, the more I hear, the more I think the mess of an addict who for sure has jealousy issues, has control issues, has anger issues. But all those things are things that people can have without necessarily being the worst manifestation of an individual. And I think hearing Kate Moss testify is going to be really crucial, actually, for the whole trial. And I think will be really significant, I think, for the jury. So final question of the day, final question of the night. Given everywhere we've been, given everything we've seen, given everything we've gone through, who do you think now? I wish someone, I don't know, do these polls stay on the kind of historic live chat once they've gone up? Because it'd be interesting to see how you all think it's changed over time. Who is going to win? Is it Depp or Heard? Not who do you want to win, who is going to win? Amber's team only have 4 hours left, whereas I think they have 15 or something. But it's like a game of chess, isn't it? When you have your go, and then you have to press the clock down and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, there you go. Amber will win, dear heart. Very clear. Amber will win. Interesting. Neither Susan. Team AH about to run out of the clock. Absolutely. Neither, says Rennie. I agree. Who's that? Dawn Decker. I agree, especially because Kate Moss is now clean. Will she offer tough love? I wonder. Interesting. It'll be 50-50 swaying towards Amber. Corshie's adventure. Really? Right. Okay. Amber will win, unfortunately. Sophie R. Ali P. Johnny will win. I think it's interesting, isn't it? I think I think there's the who you want to win, and then there's of course who will win. I got a funny feeling that it might be inconclusive, or if someone has to win, Johnny might win, but he'll get no money. But if he wins and doesn't get the money, he's won, because that will be his restoration in essentially Hollywood land to some extent. I mean, they'll still need to put some clear blue water between this whole event, because you can't forget some of the things you've heard and seen in this, can you? Hung jury, says Shane Cox. I should have put that as a choice, really, shouldn't I? I should have put hung jury. Look, so okay, so 82% of you are saying Johnny Depp to win. I assume that's who you think will win rather than who you want to win. Guys, that was fun as ever. Thank you. Let's finish with the man himself. Thank you ever so much. Again, as ever, it's only as good as all of your comments. Thank you for all of your observations, all your witticisms, all your knowledge, and of course we will be back tomorrow night, and we will be back on Wednesday too, after the Kate Moss. So see you tomorrow. Keep your comments coming in underneath. Any other updates, head over to my Instagram, subscribe if you haven't. There's always lots of entertaining and silly and stupid stuff coming up. Even the Kourtney Kardashian wedding chat today was silly and entertaining. But guys, stay safe. See you in the morning.